Yeah, we sure do appreciate you being here at the Voice of College Football for another college football show. College football show, that's our name. We'll get to the naming suggestions and recommendations and your submissions sometime here in the next hour, we believe. Plus, understand we go for one full hour. That's Monday through Friday, 10 a.m. Eastern Time, which just reminds me that the link is not in the chat. It's nowhere to be found right now. And of course, we want to take your calls. So we'll get the link to you here. We wanted to get that out on X as well. We failed to do that. Number of things going on this morning. Also wanted to get that to a guest as well. Okay. We do appreciate you being here at the Voice of College Football, though. Came up with a couple topics on Wednesday that certainly play today as well. Want to get to some commitment news. So again, comments and questions are welcome here at the Voice of College Football. We take your comments and questions, and we will drop the link. Let's do it right now. Sorry about that. We always like to get the link in the chat early, and so anyone can join. Amazon links in the description section of all the videos. Please use the Amazon link. And Chris Gates Fitness. We are partnering this month with Chris Gates Fitness and his new program, Training Camp. We will hear about that a little bit more for the rest of the show. We guarantee one full hour of conversation every day. We started just after media days, and we're going to take you through the entire season, Monday through Friday. Monday through Friday, 10 a.m. Eastern Time. Most Thursdays and Fridays. At this point, we're talking like 90-some% of the Thursdays and Fridays. We will also go live after the games that night. So we will be live for post-game to take your calls, your comments, your questions, to discuss the games and the weekend with you Thursdays, Fridays, and we might as well say it Saturday night, of course, here at the Voice of College Football. That's been a long-standing tradition to go live with all of you after the primetime games on Saturday, but we're going to be live with you after the primetime games on Thursday and Friday, and we will have to play it by ear depending on the matchups, depending on the situation, because we want to do what's best. And so what we're going to do is gauge the relative importance and popularity of the games on Thursday and Friday. So if we've got duds, I don't want to pick on any particular teams out there. We got the Houston-Tulsa matchup on a Thursday night, on a Friday night. We're probably going to jump on a little bit early. We probably will just basically come on sometime during prime time. Under those circumstances, if we don't believe that there's a huge attraction toward the Thursday or Friday games, we will be on during the game. If it's a relatively big game, I'm not talking about a huge, enormous game because those are played on Saturday. I'm talking about, for example, the Friday Big Ten games on Fox. Fox is live every Friday night now with these Big Ten games. I shouldn't just call them the Big Ten games, but I think 10 of their 12 selections were Big Ten games. The other 2 are Big 12 games. We'll be live after the game. We'll let you watch the game. We'd like to watch the game. Then we'll go live with you after the game. If it's 44-10 in the third quarter, we'll be here. We'll jump on. We're not going to wait until the final last second of a blowout to go live. So keep that in mind. 10 a.m. Eastern Time, Monday through Friday. Thursday and Friday, Saturday, post-game after the primetime games. All right. We'll get to a topic that we brought up yesterday, did not get to. I see it all over the place. It's not quite as prevalent as the blue blood conversation, but I see this all over the place. I saw this a couple of places recently. And again, I come across these topics a lot more in the last year or two because I've joined Facebook groups. To my detriment, I've joined about 40 college football Facebook groups. I don't go in there to engage and chat. It's just to promote the shows. So, for example, I looked up every conceivable Nebraska show that I could find, or Nebraska Facebook group, joined them, even though I'm not a Nebraska fan, and they ask, and I tell them flat out, I don't lie. Don't say I'm a Nebraska fan. I say, don't care about Nebraska. I'm not a Nebraska fan, but we do run a Nebraska channel. Here it is. And they've admitted me, for example. And so we promote the Nebraska show and the Nebraska content on those Huskers channels. That being the case, it's obviously in my feed. It's all over the place, all these college football pages. And so this is another one that I see coming up frequently. Most hated man in college football. All right. First of all, I don't hate anyone. Had a conversation the other day, a couple months ago, maybe it's been, with a friend about, and we weren't specifically talking about hating people. It came up, and my friend said something about hating various people or in the past and needing forgiveness for that. And I gotta say, I don't know that I've ever hated anyone. However you term that, I don't know that I've ever hated anyone, because I think of hating someone being where you're at a place where you want harm done to that person. Can't think of that situation in which I've hated somebody that I want harm done to them. There are a lot of people I don't have any respect for. I don't admire. I think that they're completely out of their minds, all those sorts of things. But hate them? No, can't say that. But hopefully that's the case for you as well. Hopefully there's nobody on your hate list, your true hate list, but we're talking about sports. So hopefully these people that we bring up, hopefully they're not hated by anyone, but we know better than that. They are. They're hated by a number of people for various reasons. And so we're going to make our list. We're going to hear from you. We're going to check out the chat and see who you have. We also took a poll. We'll check that out and see who's winning the poll. Obviously, I could only put up so many names. I could think of maybe 15 or 20. We're going past or present throughout college football. So players and coaches come to mind first and foremost. Coaches more than anything, because they stick around a lot longer than the players, of course. So, and coaches are, this is the difference between the NFL and college football. One of the differences is that historically, the players in the NFL are the story. The players, they are the stars. In college football, the coaches are the stars. And that's the way it is. And so we've had legendary coaches throughout the ages that stick around a program for 25 or 30 years. We're not going to see that going forward. Nick Saban may be the last of his kind. Kirk Ferentz may be the last of his kind. After Kirk Ferentz, who has stuck around a program? Dabo Swinney's at about 15 years at Clemson. After that, Mike Gundy, Oklahoma State. He's working on about 16, 17, 18 years, something in that range. Post Les Miles, I think Gundy would have been at 2005, 2006. Les Miles took over for Nick Saban in 2005. So Mike Gundy working on 20 years at Oklahoma State. Kirk Ferentz more in the 25-year range, 1999 at Iowa. So it's a dying breed in terms of long-term coaches. We don't see the Bobby Bowdens and Joe Paternos, Woody Hayes, Bear Bryants anymore. But they're still stars. They stick around. They go to various programs. But it's a young man's game, certainly. So most hated in college football. Let me throw up some guys, and I'm going to basically state some of these guys, I have no idea why they're hated. Or I don't necessarily think it's justified, let's say. But when I think about the current game, what's going on right now in college football, and somebody posted, I think it was our buddy Mike, posted in the comments section to the poll, he said, I think what's more interesting, and let me throw the poll up here that we took, and I apologize, we posted this pretty late last night, so I'm sure it didn't get much traction yet. But we wanted to hear from you on this topic. And also, of course, we got comments coming in, not just the poll. And Mike stated that it's more interesting and there are more candidates outside of college football than inside college football. Well, I don't look at it that way. I don't look at the players and the coaches as being inside college football and announcers and commentators and officials and whomever else being outside of college football. They're all college football personalities. Paul Feinbaum is a college football personality. He's in college football, for example. So let's check out our poll. So there's only space to show 5 selections here. But Mike brings up a good point, because on the selections I provided, I did not go off the playing field. I should have done that just to show an example going off the playing field here. Most hated man in college football. And here we are live on Thursday. Ryan Day's at 23%, Brian Kelly at 11%, Lincoln Riley 10%, Deion Sanders 41%, leading easily Dabo Sweeney at 15%. That's 268 votes cast. So if you'd like to vote, that's right on the front page of the channel you're on right this second. Okay, so if we go in order, let's start with these guys. And again, I should have put a media personality just to let you know that we include all media personalities. Anybody else? I might be the most hated person in college football. Mike brought up some good ones. I think he cited Paul Feinbaum, Connor Stallions, and may have said somebody else. Okay, Deion, why is he hated? Well, he's loved and hated. So we all need to understand that with great admiration comes great criticism. I think we can see this in the political world. We can see this in the music industry. I'm thinking of 2 individuals right now that are widely admired, but they are probably the most, not probably, they are the most criticized. So when you reach both ends of the spectrum, that shows a huge amount of popularity. And when you grow to that degree, the more popular somebody is, or the more that they have a polarizing type, whether it's a policy stance, personality, fill in the blank, then they're going to have the most detractors. They're going to have the most haters, whether it's because of their values and beliefs and stances, or just simply people don't like them. For as much as people love them as a personality, they're going to hate them as a personality, because we're all different and we all gravitate to different styles. So most of this is going to be a stylistic thing, and it's not going to be anything that we're going to uncover that these people have done that's wrong. I don't know of anything on this poll right here and the 5 that I chose where any of these guys have done anything wrong. Not that they don't do things wrong. We all do all the time. Of course, we make mistakes, all of us, every day, but I'm talking about making identifiable mistakes, like in terms of morals or ethics. Mistakes on the field, sure. So Deion Sanders is a polarizing figure. So I led into that spiel because as soon as I saw Deion at number 1, I thought, well, this is obvious, because if we posted a poll that said, who is the most loved man in college football, who would be number 1? Well, if we got enough votes, I can almost guarantee it would be Deion Sanders. He would be the most loved and the most hated. He's polarizing. That's the definition of that term. He's loud and brash. I thought it was crafted very well by our guy, Josh Neighbors, who joined us on yesterday's show when he said he is the most popular, recognizable commodity in this sport outside the sport. He didn't become famous in the sport. All these other guys are famous because of college football. They're college football coaches. Deion Sanders is an independent, popular icon legend by himself based on his playing ability and then his stardom and celebrity that was all possible because of his playing ability that turned him into a TV personality, a spokesperson, all of those things. So Deion Sanders is a brand way beyond the rest of these guys. These guys are football coaches. After they cease being football coaches, they will no longer show up on the radar at all, except for their own business pursuits, charitable pursuits, and then obviously having something to say about college football and being given some kind of platform on a network as an analyst, but they're not brands unto themselves. Deion Sanders is the only person on the sport who is a brand to themselves. I can't think of anybody prior to this. Maybe Tim Tebow. Would Tim Tebow be the last guy that was a brand unto himself? And I don't know, with Tebow, I don't necessarily know how to explain it because obviously there have been very popular players, Johnny Manziel, Cam Newton, and others, but they didn't really stand for anything outside the sport. They were just really popular players that had a certain swag, charisma that people liked and people hated. And we learned from the Elvis movie, and we've learned this from other situations, that hate can be just as sold as love. And so, yeah, the old adage that any publicity is good publicity comes into play here. So that's the take on Deion Sanders. I don't necessarily have much opinion. So polarizing figures with me, I don't really gravitate to. So I'm not as anywhere close to being as on either end of the spectrum when it comes to people like that. I would think that most of you have a strong opinion about Deion Sanders. That you have a strong liking for the guy or disliking for the guy. I don't really care. He has said some things that I don't agree with. I don't think is becoming of a college football head coach, that I don't think is a great way to run a program and model yourself in front of your athletes and the rest of college football. However, there's a lot of things that he does and says that I do believe are positive influences on young people. So I don't want to be in a place of judgment. So I'm not going to judge the guy in regards to his intent or his impact. But like most of us, it's been positive and negative. Hopefully it's more positive than negative. Have all of us had positive and negative impact on people? Yes. The question is, how much has been positive and how much negative? So yes, Deion Sanders, I think it's all plain to see when you are outspoken, he obviously, although he's done, I believe, good for athletes, and he is a man of faith. That's what he promotes. I think that's been a positive. He also likes to draw a lot of attention to himself. And then that also either gets misconstrued or is accurately perceived as putting himself in front of his team. So let's go through your comments, because there's a ton of guys that I will throw out that are not listed here that we can certainly talk about. Yes, the next guy, if I was going to go in the past, so obviously that's a current list, and that's a current on the field list. So I did not include Paul Feinbaum. I did not include, who would be the most hated person to Florida State football fans would be Kirk Herbstreit, but he's not hated across the board. But for Florida State fans, yeah, he's been a target. So I could put him up. This was a Florida State show. Tim Tebow. Yes, absolutely. Why? I think I don't get it. I get it. The hatred for Tim Tebow, I believe, shows us how decrepit and disgusting our society's become. Because actually, Tim Tebow, in the aftermath, not at the time that he was playing, because he, like other guys that have risen to that level of popularity, it became overbearing. But he had no bearing on that. He had no influence on that. It was not his fault how much he was promoted. But for example, I'm watching the SEC championship game. Tim Tebow scores a touchdown. And on the ensuing kickoff, a Florida player just crushes the Alabama return man. Just a beautiful hit, takes him down at the 10-yard line. And my thought is, that's a great play. That was an exciting play. That was fun to watch. Good, clean football. And they're showing Tim Tebow on the sideline the entire time. They're not showing the poor guy on the Florida special teams who will never get any airtime, never a mention, never a nothing. Don't know who his name is. I'm trying to find out his name. While this is happening, because I'm the nerd about college football that I am, I want to know who made that play. Who is this guy? And they're talking about Tim Tebow. And they even went to so this would have been probably what? So it's 2008. So this would have been a Vern Lundquist, Gary Danielson broadcast. They did an exceptional job in their prime. They've seen better days. In their prime, that was a great broadcast team, but these guys were not doing their job in the moment. And they're talking about Tim Tebow, and then it went to the nth degree. And this is when I got sickened, is they not only were talking about Tim Tebow when there was just this amazing special teams play, but they were talking about Tim Tebow inspiring that player to make that special teams hit. And I thought, this is utter ridiculousness. This dude runs, lifts weights, watch film, goes to the meetings, goes to practice every day, goes to two-a-days, which were a thing at the time. All of that. This guy has his own career. He has his own role on the team. Let's give him credit. So that had nothing to do with Tim Tebow. So there have been some people throughout the years that I have grown sick of, but it wasn't their fault, and he would be at the top of the list. I got sick of hearing about him, but it was not his fault. I got sick of hearing about Travis Kelce and Taylor Swift watching the NFL, and I don't even watch 10% of the NFL that I did 15 years ago, and I got sick of hearing about them because I just wanted to watch a football game, but that's not their fault. At least I don't think it's their fault. Maybe they do some things that creates that or feeds into that. Okay, I want to see your comments because I could talk 10 or 15 minutes on each one of these people. And I don't think any of the hatred or angst against any of these guys is justified. If there is, it would only be Deion Sanders because of what I just stated. Ryan Day, this is funny. You would think that Ryan Day would be grouped in the John Cooper class. And that's why he would be hated, and he would be hated by Ohio State fans. But that's not what I find. I find that Michigan fans hate Ryan Day, and I guess general college football fans just think that Ryan Day hasn't delivered, which he technically hasn't. If you're talking about a national championship, if you're talking about other things, He's got to have the best record in the sport since he's been coaching, except for Kirby Smart, right? I can't imagine anybody else has a better record than Ryan Day since 2019. No, Kirby Smart does. Kirby Smart has lost how many games since 2019? 2, 4, 5. Day's lost 8. So the guy's got the second best record in the sport. He's not delivered a national championship. He's had 2 rough playoff losses that, if you know anything about football and you're unbiased, realize, okay, coached a really good game, played a great team, didn't work out, ball bounced the wrong way. So I don't understand the Ryan Day, and I know I put that up there in this case, but I see that all the time because I don't think that Ohio State fans hate Ryan Day. I don't think that's coming from Ohio State fans for the most part. Of course, some do. And if your team's not won a championship and they're supposed to win a championship, there's always going to be part of the fan base that's going to, quote unquote, hate the coach. And we'll get to your comments in just a second because I want to see what you guys have to say. And again, the link is in the chat if you'd like to call. So I find it odd that Ryan Day has not delivered the ultimate. His own fan base is generally good with him, but other people hate him. That's kind of odd to me. Brian Kelly, it's pretty much 2 things. And I think it's waning in regards to the angst against Brian Kelly. But Brian Kelly, during his time at Notre Dame, I'm going to say that's 3 things with Brian Kelly. Number 1, there is an incident going back to 2010 or 11 involving a student assistant who was taking video of practice. There was inclement weather. There's a big controversy as to Brian Kelly's responsibility there. And unfortunately, there was a tragedy. The young man perished. And a lot of people blame Brian Kelly for that death, for that incident. Very tough stuff. I'm not going to speak to that because that would not be fair. I don't know enough about it. I know that we've had one guy in particular on our team here at the Voice of College Football who is very outspoken about that situation and their distaste and detest Brian Kelly. So that's one thing that's very serious. So when I said that none of these guys have done anything morally wrong in the public's eye, of course they have. We've all done morally wrong things, but I mean, in the public's eye, nobody's done anything wrong. That would be the one exception, depending on your perspective. Again, I don't have enough. That's one of those situations where when I bring it up, I think, oh, I should take a half hour and I should really dig into that. But put that in line of the other 147 things that I would like to research and take some time to better understand like that. So interesting there. Brian Kelly, 11%. So with Brian Kelly, it's that incident. It's also that he's just a surly kind of guy. And so his relationships with the media have not been good. He does not present himself well. I think he's getting much better. He's calmed down. He's toned it down. He's become much softer in his later years here. Not that he's an old guy by any stretch, but when he was at Notre Dame, just always seemed like he was surly and curt and short and didn't have time for people. And then the whole clownish act when he put on the fake accent when he got to LSU. Fortunately for him, he's overcome that. They seem to be fine with it. They like him down there. By all indications, Matt Moscone is a great follow when it comes to LSU football. who's with ESPN Radio, our buddy Matt Moscona, who comes on here on a regular basis. And he knows Brian Kelly and says everything's good. The fan base loves him now. But that initial appearance in front of the LSU fan base was cringe worthy. Okay, Lincoln Riley, obviously he's got the low number there, and that would make sense. I don't see him as any kind of controversial figure. However, Oklahoma fans obviously don't like him. He left a blue blood to go to another blue blood. Oklahoma is one of those places that is not used to having coaches leave. So think about the programs that don't have coaches leave. Coaches do not leave these programs. And I would think that the exception would be, of course, an NFL job. Coaches don't leave Ohio State. Coaches don't leave Michigan. Jim Harbaugh, the exception, of course, moving on to the NFL, if we leave that as the one exception. Coaches leave Penn State. Bill O'Brien left Penn State. Before that, we have no idea because Joe Paterno was there for eternity. Coaches don't leave USC, or do they? Well, Pete Carroll goes to the NFL. So again, there's a collection of programs that I think we would pretty much figure out. You don't leave this program unless you go to the NFL. Well, that stopped a couple of years ago with the move Brian Kelly made from Notre Dame to LSU. Who would leave Notre Dame football? When is the last time that's happened? All those guys have gotten fired. Well, Lou Holtz left. Lou Holtz left, though, to retire. Then he decided not to retire and went to South Carolina a few years ago. But I think nobody's leaving Notre Dame for South Carolina. So that was just a move that Lou Holtz made to move on and to go to another stage of life. And then he had to scratch the itch again and get back into coaching. So there are certain places you just don't leave. And Oklahoma sees themselves as being one of those places. And pretty much for the most part, they've always fired coaches. And then Bob Stoops stepped away into retirement, not to take another job. So there are 7, 8 places in college football that you just simply don't leave. So I think Oklahoma fans are a bit put off because of that. And then also the way that it was done wasn't the best. I didn't hear great things about Lincoln Riley's final conversation with his team. When he was leaving, especially in that manner, he should have given that team all the time they needed. If I was leaving my football team, and I don't fault these coaches for leaving, what are they supposed to do? The players can leave, and even when the players could not leave, it's a business. You go to the best job. I have no issue with that. However, and everybody, a certain number of people state, well, they've made a commitment to these players. Well, there are overlapping classes, and a coach would never leave because they would always have commitments to players and of course they got to continue to sign more players before the other players' eligibility runs out. So they would never leave if they kept their commitment to the players that they signed. So I have no issue with coaches leaving. It's the manner in which they leave. And as I understand it, and I think this is confirmed, that Lincoln Riley talked to his team for 10 or 15 minutes. Just basically, I don't know what you could say in 10 or 15 minutes. It certainly doesn't sound like he allowed them to talk back, to respond, and then he was out the door. I know that these coaches, they just want to get to the next job, and they want to start recruiting. They want to get on the phone. They want to build a staff. They want to do all that. All they're thinking about is their new job and getting started to build what they need to build. I get that. Every minute's wasted. Every minute that they spend doing something else is wasted. However, if I was a head coach who left my team, I would give them all the time they needed. And if we were sitting there for 5 or 6 hours, we would sit there for 5 or 6 hours, and I would allow every player to speak if they wanted to in the room. And I would also touch base with every player. As they walked out, hey, they could form a line, and I would spend 3-4 minutes with every player saying goodbye. That's what I would do. So Lincoln Riley, the exit from Oklahoma was not handled in the best way. Now, Dabo Swinney, why is Dabo Swinney hated? That certainly has to do with his faith. He's outspoken about his faith, and that is always going to draw a lot of hatred and criticism. And even more so in our society as we become a very anti-Christian society. So that's just going to become worse and worse for Dabo Swinney. So that I think is the bulk of it. Other than that, obviously there are people that are hated simply for winning. If you win a lot, you're going to get hated. Nick Saban got hated. Now, Nick Saban has arrived at a place in his career, and certainly near the end, where he became more cherished and loved because people realized it's almost over. But for much of his career, he was hated. Now he's beloved because, of course, he doesn't coach anymore, so he doesn't impact your team. Same thing with Dabo Swinney. He became so good and they became so dominant. They were Alabama. They were as good as Alabama for 6 seasons. They won just as much as Alabama for 6 seasons, and people don't like that. And those are the only 2 things I can come up with. And he's, again, when you're more outgoing, then that's going to attract a lot of people to you. And there's going to be a lot of people that are going to be turned off by that. So that's my rundown of those. And then let me throw out a bunch of names off the top of my head, past and present, and then I'm going to get to your comments. Past and present, hated people in college football. First of all, I can't think of any women that are hated. And again, we are talking about sports hate, hopefully. I know with a lot of you, we're not talking about sports hate. We're talking about just sheer hatred. So hopefully that gets knocked out of you. But people being hated in a sports context, I just mentioned Nick Saban, Paul Feinbaum, Urban Meyer, Tim Tebow, Johnny Manziel, Pete Carroll. I got a friend of mine that when Pete Carroll was coaching, he hated Pete Carroll. I can't think of anybody else coaching now. I think Jimbo Fisher got to a place where he was hated by people. When somebody underachieves and they're given a lot of money and resources and they underachieve, even if they're not doing anything like morally wrong, I think a lot of people hate that. All right, I'm going to get to your comments. Before we do that, we certainly want to honor our sponsor, Chris Gates, and his training camp program. And we have been touting this for the last few weeks as our partner here at the Voice of College Football. But you know what? Chris is going to do a much, much better job of telling you about training camp himself.
What's up, everybody? Chris here from Chris Gates Fitness and the online fitness training camp. Thanks for letting me pop in for a few seconds to tell you about what we got going on in training camp this month. And there's a lot happening, okay? The August program dropped just a few days ago. Everybody's getting into their August workouts, having a blast. The private group is full of discussion and chatter about people getting started, which I love to see. We're going to be doing weekly football pick'em here at the end of the month. That's when that starts. I'm going to be giving away free supplements to people who win that. I'm giving away a treadmill in September because we're doing a step count challenge as a group. All kinds of fun stuff coming. So I hope to see you there. Voice of College Football has a discount code VOICE. You can still get a discount on your first month if you want to jump in. Would love to see you there. Talk to you in training camp.
All right, and we are back. And once again, let me hit the right key here. There we go. Yes, Chris Gates in the fitness program training camp, and use the promo code VOICE. Okay, let's get to your comments. Again, the links in the comment section. Here's the deal. We appreciate the names. I'm sorry. I was going in a different direction there. We appreciate the names that you've submitted for the naming of the show, and continue to do that. Do not send them in the chat. Unfortunately, that's happened a lot. I'm estimating we've gotten 50, 60, 70 name selections, but I've only counted 21 in the comment section. So again, put them in the comment section, please, of the videos, any of the videos, because I will see them there, and we've got a running list, and we will get that sorted out. It doesn't appear as though we'll have time today to go through the names that have been submitted, but I want to throw them out for your perusal, but we will do that at a later date. We're almost out of time. And again, first hour, we're here, guaranteed. First hour, Monday through Friday, 10 a.m. Eastern time. Past that, we need your support. We appreciate your support. And of course, we will continue based on your support, $100 for the second hour, and we will continue. I would love to be here all day. I have all day. If we need it, I'll knock out my appointments. I'll be here. So that's the deal going forward throughout the season. We want to be here with you each and every day, and will be from 10 to 11. And then looking for your support to continue the show, because you keep it running here at the Voice of College Football. All right. So comments. I'm looking for. Hey, Paul, Mountaineer Paul's here. Paul, we appreciate you stopping by, but we're 45 minutes into the show. It does not appear that we're going to get the support that we need to continue past the hour. Therefore, come on back anytime. And I apologize because we did not get this posted on X today as we typically do. Of course, this is our 9th show. Been doing this for 2 weeks, and I posted the link on X, and you should be able to grab it there every day. But of course, this would be the first one that I did not. So appreciate you being here, Mountaineer Paul. He's right here on YouTube, everyone, talking West Virginia football. But looks like we're running out of time. I want to see your comments. All right. Mike says Dabo thinks he's Clemson based on his comments. How he would suggest intentionally losing games to lighten the bandwagon. I don't know what that pertains to. I'm looking for hate comments. Who. Mike says, I don't hate Dabo for his faith. I don't like the steroids. The quote ranked 11th comments, how he doesn't use NIL and the transfer portal, how he belittles their fans, like when Tyler on the call-in show. Okay. So the first point aside, I think that's the biggest reason. I don't even think it's close why Dabo is hated by certain people. Yeah, they had a steroid scandal. Did they cover it up? Again, that's been so long ago that I would have to research it to have a definitive opinion on whether I thought that there was some wrongdoing. There was wrongdoing there, but in regards to whether he perpetuated that, covered it up, any of those things, I don't know. I don't know why anybody that's a rival fan or a non-Clemson fan could care less of whether he uses NIL or the transfer portal. Believe me, Clemson uses NIL. They would not have a top 10 recruiting class right now if they did not use NIL. They use NIL to keep players and to sign high school players. They have an NIL program. So that's not necessarily accurate. Why you care that he uses the transfer portal, I don't understand. Now, you could say that you don't agree. You don't think he's doing his best for his program because of that. But why you would hate somebody for that doesn't make any sense to me. Yeah, that Tyler call in, I didn't have an issue with that whatsoever from what I remember of it. Yeah, I thought that he was patient and then he cut loose. All right. Oh, man. Actually, George brings up a great one here. Uh, he's a great college football player. He's one of the greatest of all time. OJ Simpson. That might be the showstopper right there. I can think of two names that are showstoppers when it comes to legitimate hate, non-sports hate for these individuals, and I would think it would be OJ Simpson and Jerry Sandusky. Bing, 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 bing. Yeah. Oh, I should be making a list here because I think this is maybe something for a later date. So I'm writing down Meyer, Urban Meyer, Paul Feinbaum, OJ. Who else don't we have there? Tebow, Manziel, Sandusky. Okay. I've named a few other people and now I'm not coming up with them. Lincoln Riley didn't leave his football team. He took half of them with him. Yeah, good point. And that's another reason why Oklahoma fans don't like him. Anybody else that you guys have named? I don't see anybody else. I thought we were going to see some other names in here. George! Graham Mertz needs to hook up with Taylor Swift so he can win a national championship. That's great. The Rod Farva. I don't think it's so much Dion that's hated rather than his sons and aspects of the program, which falls on Dion in the end. No, I think he's hated. And again, some people truly hate him. Other people in a sports context hate him. Although when it comes to a sports context, you typically hate, quote, hate your rivals or whoever is just super successful and you're sick of it. Tom Brady, Bill Belichick, the Patriots. People started to hate them even though they had no connection. It was not a rival team. There wasn't anything in particular about them that they hated. It was just, we're sick of you winning. We hate you. That happens. Here we go. Charisse, speaking on behalf of the Buckeye fan base as an Ohio State fan, I don't hate Ryan Day at all because he is a good coach, and there is no doubt about that. So D-Rock Irish is letting us know, in addition to everything I said about Brian Kelly, adding, rolled his players under the bus on several occasions and out lied to a recruit. Well, the outright lying to a recruit, I don't know if that's isolated to Brian Kelly. In terms of him throwing his players on the bus, under the bus, I've heard that. So I've heard that from several sources all over the place. I don't recall that exactly happening, but I've heard it from enough people and some people that I respect that I do believe that that's happened. He would not take as much accountability for losses as he would throw on the players. Red Wine 65. Paul Feinbaum reminds me of Les Nessman talking smack. If you're not familiar, look him up. Interesting. I don't think of Kirby Smart as being hated. MCU Drew says I'd put Kirby as the most hated just because he's currently the best. I'll write him down since he's been thrown out there. Kirby Smart. Pete Carroll. Can we think of any other players outside of Tebow, Manziel, and OJ for much different things? Why anyone would hate him? So it's funny because I really, at this point, don't know who my favorite coach of all time is. It was Earl Bruce for a long time. I guess he still is in a sense, just hearkening back to my childhood, that Earl Bruce would be my favorite head coach of all time, just for football reasons and because that takes me back to my days of growing up as a college football fan. But my favorite coach now, it's not even close, is Dabo Swinney. Dabo Swinney's my favorite coach. Now, my favorite player of all time now, not as a player, but for what he's doing for the good of man, is Tim Tebow. Tim Tebow is my favorite player of all time, but not for being a player. For being a player, it's Art Schlichter. But for being a person, it's Tim Tebow. We appreciate Mike being here, and it does not appear as anybody else had any particular comments about most hated. So I think we've got our list of about 15. I'm not coming up with anybody else. So we've got our 5 there. We've got Kirby Smart, Pete Carroll, Urban Meyer, Paul Feinbaum, OJ, Tim Tebow, Johnny Manziel, Jerry Sandusky. I'm trying to think of any other commentators. There's got to be some commentators out there who have been hated, either past or present. Maybe like Beano Cook. But man, I loved Beano Cook. But I'm trying to think of, there really haven't been any polarizing commentators outside of Feinbaum. Everybody's pretty vanilla within the college football world. Now, I think David Pollack was awesome, but he didn't do anything to cause himself to be hated. But man, David Pollack, why that guy? I don't know that he's doing much college football anymore. I think I follow him on Twitter. No, I don't. But yeah, he's about the best. He is about the best I've ever seen when it comes to football and entertainment and combining the two. I can't think of anybody better. Now, I'm not saying he's the best at analyzing football, although he's extremely good, or the most entertaining, but I think he's the best combination of both. I would think that maybe somebody like Pat McAfee might make this list as the most loved, the most hated. Again, the most loved and the most hated are generally going to be a similar list. But I don't know much about Pat McAfee. I've never seen his show. I've only seen very short clips. So the most entertaining thing I've ever seen him do was because it was one of those Peyton Manning clips that they do that are exceptional. One of the best things ESPN has ever done are those Peyton Manning, whatever they're called, the School of Manning or something, where they do their little skits, and they're just phenomenal. And you guys, I'm sure most of you are aware, they're funny, they're entertaining, but they're also informative, they're historical. And he's got one with Pat McAfee, and they do a coffin corner clip that's great. It's great. But so McAfee was fine on there, but he didn't produce that. Thank you, John. I appreciate that. I'll have to try again. I know that I've tried at least once. Sometimes it takes wearing some people down. We've had some great guests recently. Phil Steele, and he's going to be on again. Phil Steele on the USC show. Peter Burns of SEC Network. Somebody else comes to mind. Oh, that's right. Tony Barnhart was supposed to be on last Monday. He had to cancel, but we're going to reschedule with Tony Barnhart, who's been covering college football for a long, long time. ESPN, CBS, and others. Yeah, Jim Harbaugh. He's hated because of all these issues with the cheating scandal. Yeah, that's an obvious one that was not on my list, but yeah, there are people that hate Jim Harbaugh. Good ones here, Ralph. The last two, so Mike Vick, because of his horrible transgressions that I hopefully he has learned from and repented of. Jimbo, Mike, thank you for that. I did mention Jimbo a while ago and talked about Jimbo Fisher. The last two guys, I don't know if we consider those guys college football guys. They're just big mouths. Skip Bayless, I have a little bit of respect for, although I've not watched him in so long. I don't even know what he's been talking about for the last 10 years. Stephen A. Smith knows nothing about college football, would not consider him a college football guy at all. I know that he's asked to comment on the sport on a fairly regular basis. He doesn't know what he's talking about. So he's a bit of a joke. Mountaineer Paul says, Pat McAfee is hated within the West Virginia fan base because of the Pitt loss. Okay, I don't know what that means. Bino Cook. Yes, good point there. Good job, Paul. Yes, Skip Bayless broke the SMU scandal. That's a long time ago, but yes, he did. Now, again, not really a college football guy. He's not a college football. He's more of an NFL guy, but he's an everything guy. And even back then, he was writing. Skip Bayless is known more for following the Dallas Cowboys. So I wouldn't consider those guys as college football guys. Did I ever meet Skip or Stephen A. at ESPN? Meet them? I wouldn't consider it meeting them, shaking their hand, saying hi. Yes. So my position at ESPN was I had people that reported to me that worked in studio. Stage people, camera operators, video operators, editors, etc. So they'd be in the studio. So what was nice, even though, of course, I was working and wasn't down there to have fun. Like, it wasn't like if you took a tour of ESPN, you'd love to hang out in a studio and just watch them do a show. Yeah, that was kind of cool. But I was always thinking I'm watching people and I'm trying to not supervise the situation because they didn't need me there. I would just check in with it's very interesting situation, interesting dynamic in terms of trying to evaluate your personnel, but it wasn't really good for you to be in the studio interrupting them in any such way. So we'd still hang out in the studio at times. So yeah, you'd run into these people a lot. The two guys that I'd see consistently, because I gave tours and they would get used to seeing me all the time, and I talked to them for a couple minutes, were Colin Cowherd and Scott Van Pelt, because I would give tours and we would run through the radio studios, and that's where I would typically see SVP and Cowherd. And they were always extremely nice to me and would make complimentary comments to whomever I was, whatever corporate execs that I was leading through a tour at the time. But those guys were nice. But Stephen A. and Skip Bayless, yeah, I know that I've said hi to them, and yeah, that was pretty much it. Like, hey, how's it going? And they were sitting there with like 3 or 4 other people, and I'm standing there with a cameraman that reports to me and just kind of touching base with them. Yeah. So I guess that's meeting. Yes, I think most people would consider that, yes, meeting somebody, but not spending time with them. One funny story that I've told a couple times in the last 10 years that I just found amusing. I don't know why, but it was very gracious of them. I'm going to the cafeteria. I'm like an entire basketball court away because we had an outdoor basketball court just outside. It was cool. They put a basketball court just outside the cafeteria door, so people would you could just run out there if you just want to take like 3 or 4 shots on your way to your next meeting or whatever, or if you wanted to play a little basketball game. Anyway, there was a basketball court right outside the cafeteria. So one time I'm coming out of building 5 and I'm crossing the basketball court. I'm on the other side of the basketball court, and Tom Jackson and Keyshawn Johnson, this is after the Sunday night shows, they've got suitcases. So boom, they're headed to the airport. They're getting out of Dodge late Sunday night. I'm talking like 1 o'clock in the morning. I'm going to the cafeteria either for a snack or to cut through to my desk. And these guys see me, and I don't have anything with me. They're the ones that have stuff on them that they've got to open the door and get their luggage through and all that so forth. And these guys see me, and for some reason, they held the door for me. So I'm kind of like rushing because I don't want them to hold the door the whole time, but I'm thinking this is very nice of you to hold the door for a guy that doesn't have any luggage or anything that I'm carrying, and you guys have all the luggage. But that was just, I thought, a very nice gesture of Tom Jackson and Keyshawn Johnson. That's the only time I remember, Tom Jackson obviously was a mainstay at ESPN, but he was only there typically Sunday, Monday. So I don't remember ever saying anything to him except for that incident. Of course, I said thank you over and over just to say, and this is very nice of you. I appreciate it. Those are some good ones from Ralph. Woody, and I would add Bo, hated by the other fan base. So I don't know if that totally counts because everybody hates the guy on the other sideline. But I get your point. Woody hated. He had a bad temper. He was a mean-spirited guy. I don't think internally he wasn't. I think the guy had a heart of gold, but as a guy that grew up in the 1930s or 40s, that's how these dudes were made. Steve Spurrier, yeah, Spurrier rubbed people the wrong way. He took shots at opponents. He made fun of Tennessee. Mike says, I don't hate Bo. I respect him. Yeah, I'm the same way. Although, in a sports way, did I hate Bo when I was 10 or 12 years old? Yeah. If you said, who do you hate in college football? Bo Schembechler, he'd be number 1 on the list. The 2 people that come to mind in a sports way is yes, John Thompson was hated. I didn't care for John Thompson. And there was really nothing behind that. It was just a perception. But, the guys probably at my highest rate of sports fandom, the 2 guys that I hated the most, again, do not want any personal harm to come to them or any misfortune off the football field, but I hated Joe Theismann and John Riggins and Dexter Manley and all those guys. I could name 45 of them because I was a Cowboys fan and so forth. So we are way overdue. We've gone 1 hour and 7 minutes. We appreciate you being here at the Voice of College Football. Again, we will be here every day at 10 a.m. Eastern Time. We would like to go overtime. We would like to continue based on your support. We appreciate you being here. Based on your support, we will continue to do these shows in a longer vein. But until now, we will hear from our sponsor. We've got an 8 o'clock Michigan call-in show tonight. We will see all of you then.
What's up, everybody? Chris here from Chris Gates Fitness and the online fitness training camp. Thanks for letting me pop in for a few seconds to tell you about what we got going on in training camp this month. And there's a lot happening, okay? The August program dropped just a few days ago. Everybody's getting into their August workouts, having a blast. The private group is full of discussion and chatter about people getting started, which I love to see. We're going to be doing weekly football pick'em here at the end of the month. That's when that starts. I'm going to be giving away free supplements to people who win that. I'm giving away a treadmill in September because we're doing a step count challenge as a group. All kinds of fun stuff coming. So I hope to see you there. Voice of College Football has a discount code VOICE. You can still get a discount on your first month if you want to jump in. Would love to see you there. Talk to you in training camp.